Brandon Carlson, I am here. Lawrence. Here. Hines.
Here.
Here.
He is with us via Zoom and cannot vote. Marissa.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
And Julie.
Here.
All right, we've got our forum. We are going to start with the public comments. Now, this is for anything that is not going to be an action item on this agenda. So we can, yeah. Okay, it looks like all these are for action items. Is there anybody that wanted to speak that was not for an item on the agenda? No? Okay, then we are going to go ahead and move into the public hearing portion. So basically the way this is going to work is we're going to have 3 minutes for each speaker that signed up for each item. We'll go through one at a time. Please be kind and courteous. Please be quiet and let whoever's speaking finish what they're saying. Lori will start a 3-minute timer whenever you start. Please stop at the 3 minutes. More did you?
Yeah, for the record, when you come up, say your name, your address. And that's how we're going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to have 7 public hearings, and the people in the public that are here for each specific item will speak on those items. And then you get 1 time to speak. After that, after all those public hearings are done, then there'll be the action items. At that point, there'll be a staff report. Could be a staff report, and then the applicant will also be allowed to speak. The applicant and staff can speak for more than 3 minutes. There isn't going to be questions. Now, the commissioners can ask questions, but the public can't ask questions. They can speak for their 3 minutes. If you're still speaking at 3 minutes, you get additional 15 seconds now.
Okay, so we will go ahead and go into the public hearing. We are going to be starting with the short-term rental for River House at 1240 River Run. I'm going to try to read these the best I can here. The first person that signed up, I'm hoping you remember me. Where's Field? Yes, okay, I can see it. Thank you, Chris.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bruce Field. I live at 1468 River Run Road, which is within 1,000 feet of the applicants. I moved to Blanco about 10 years ago. I was on the P&Z at one point in time. I was the mayor of the city of Blanco. This is the first opportunity. One of the reasons I moved to Blanco and picked out the property, it was part of the Weber subdivision. This Weber subdivision had a deed restriction that specifically limited property to single-family residences. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to be there on the river in a residential area. I haven't heard from the applicant. They didn't bother to come by and talk to me. Our deed restrictions have been in effect since 1996. Specifically says single-family residence. Not only does the deed restriction limit the property to single-family residence, the city ordinance says that any acceptance of an SDR will not unduly affect the area. This would impact the area because it's a residential area. It's not a commercial area. And so allowing this application would violate both the deed restrictions and the city ordinance. This deed restriction has been in effect for 27 years. I've lived there 10 years. and it's always been single-family residency. This application is not for a single-family residence, it's for a commercial to change the area. So I respectfully request that you deny the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the next one I have on here is Chris Carbo.
Hi, my name is Chris Carbo. I live on 1104 Fulcher Street. That's a couple of houses up from the short-term rental application. I've lived there 18 years. Absolutely love it here. And I'm thankful that the deed restrictions for the Weber subdivision state that only single-family residences may be built in the subdivision. Blanco's a charming town that gets a fair amount of tourism, and I feel like if you waive this deed restriction, you're just opening the door to eventually let it be a charmless tourist trap with a bunch of absentee homeowners. So that's all really. I hope y'all do the right thing and vote against this application.
All right, the next one I've got is Karen Timmons, it looks like. Correct?
Hi, everybody. I'm Karen Timmons, and my address is 1240 River Run. The applicants have said that their address is 1240 River Run. We are the sellers of the property. We do not want the short-term rental in our neighborhood. We have nothing but homes. We attempted to sell all of our property a few years ago, and when we found out that they wanted to put in multiple homes on that property, we were kind of on the fence at the time, and we decided that we don't want to do that to our neighborhood. We're not gonna. So we stayed there, and we're happy that we did. As we've gotten older, we feel like we can't take care of as much property as we have, so we decided to sell a portion of it. If we had known that their intentions were to make this a short-term rental, we would not have sold this property to them. We love our neighborhood, we love all the people in it, and we all take care of each other, and it's not an in and out type of neighborhood where we're gonna have a bunch of weekend rentals coming in and out of the neighborhood. It's very close to our property. I just ask all of you, how would you like that in your neighborhood? And do we want Blanco to set a precedent in our neighborhoods like this? I don't think so. I'm asking you to deny it, please.
Wayne Gosnell.
Thank you. My name is Wayne Gosnell. Our address is 1374 River Run. We're right next door to the STR. We bought that property in 1997. We built our house in 2007. And I'm here, of course, to request the permit tonight. As Mr. Peel said, the permit would be in direct violation of the River subdivision deed restrictions that have been in effect since 1996. But what we have to think about is if the city of Blanco does approve that STR, we have a problem, because the city of Blanco is not in the business of enforcing private deed restrictions. However, neither should it knowingly and willingly take action that would violate those private deed restrictions. Because if it does, then it becomes a party to that violation and a potential litigant. There would be litigation. As Mr. Peel said, it does also violate the Blanco's short-term rental ordinance that says that the application will not substantially impact, affect, or impair the underlying character and usage within the zone district. Well, of course, it will change the entire character of their neighborhood. We live in a quiet residential area. It is occupied by working families and older retirees. We know each other, we look out for each other. And to have a bunch of transitory strangers coming in here, in and out, would materially disrupt the nature of that neighborhood. In addition, we have concerns about increased noise, increased traffic, the increased potential for criminal activity and mischief. And that property is right across County Road 102 from Blanco River. So it's really easy to envision that property being rented by some fraternity or some other group on the weekends who come in here for a river party. That would be completely out of character with the neighborhood. And finally, you go out there and look at that. They have put the electric poles out there, the electric service. There are 3 big boxes, not one, but 3 of them. That tells me that there's probably plans in the back of their mind for more than one STR on that property. That would not be good. So, in summary, I would like to ask you to, I respectfully ask you to deny this permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Martha?
I'm Martha Gosnell, his wife, and we're at 1374 River Run. The bedroom windows of this house look directly into my bathroom. I'll start there. I've not had that problem. I don't want to have a problem with something like that. When these people purchased the property and put their flags out, outlining the house, being a nosy neighbor, I went over and looked. And they came in and I commented that it was a big house. And they said, oh, no, it's not that big. It's only 2,900 square feet. Sort of a thing. I said, okay, welcome to the neighborhood. They had every opportunity at that point to tell me to not moving, and they didn't. And right there, kind of kiss a bad taste to me. My other concern is being right across from the river. It looks like there's a steep bank down to the river all through there in Verona. But there are little animal trails and access points and a spring right below this property into the river. That is our drinking water source for the city. And I don't want it to become a place where people hang out and drink beer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all the ones that we had for River Run. Next, we have the PDD for 7 Oaks Plan Development. Yeah, I'm working. Yes, does anybody not have a problem reading?
More on River Run.
Oh, I did not see more.
You might have seen it in your form, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'm seeing on 7 Oaks and not seeing the other River Runs.
On Vulture.
Might just be missing. Not seeing full readings. Oh, okay, sorry. Some people didn't write over under the subject, so let me go through. So Carl Reeves, sorry, I was looking on the right side. It's all written on the left. Yeah, sorry. So we're still on River Run.
My name is Carl Reeves. At 1204 Vulture Street, we're the only street in the city, I believe it has 3 Main, First, Vulture, and River Run. But it's a small area. This is my ticket to come speak tonight. My wife told me not to say what I wanted to say because I heard my friends. We bought our house in 2010. We hired in 2012. As a matter of fact, today I got our residence was on Vulture Street. I don't know if anybody's noticed on Vulture Street, there's a house up the street from us. It's got a mortar and pedestal on it. That was for the person that started the pharmacy here. One that was never used. The street has a history. One of the reasons we wanted to come here is we already had friends here. The city was nice, and we had history. And somehow we managed to save all that despite living through. Oh, we put the water plant, yeah. As anybody saw when that water plant on the river was going to finish. Anyway, we put up with that. This is one thing I don't think we should be asked to put up with. These short-term rentals, we may have a bunch of great people coming in there at any time. All it takes is the one. I have grandchildren and now I have a great grandchild that come down here. I don't want to not be able to sit on my patio or, sit out on under a tree out there. By the way, we live in common road. And just the way this was handled, we never heard a word about it until I got a letter 6 days after it was written, saying this was going to happen in a week. I don't know if these folks were trying to pull something. I have an extensive background in commercial real estate, very high-end real estate. This stuff goes on all the time. It comes up too late for anybody to do it. Say it as I'm supposed to. Don't need that. We've got the life from the school, which we love. We love to hear the band. The whole area is just fantastic. But I cannot support somebody. In other words, what got me into that was you got a one-car garage for the 20 square. There's not going to be a lot of parking across the street on the river because that's cut all down over there. We see that year round. I just ask you to please help us preserve the relationships that we have with these families. When we go out of town, we call somebody who's going to watch. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not seeing any more for River Run. Is there anyone?
Yeah, one more.
What's the last one? The very last one. 7 Oaks Summit. Which,
The other last one,
Wayne goes now.
There you go.
What was the name, sir? I'm so sorry.
Holmes.
Jeff Holmes. Okay, I apologize, Jeff Holmes. No problem. That was entirely my fault. I crushed it off for some reason. My fault entirely. It's gonna be that kind of night.
I apologize. I live at, my name is Jeff Holmes, and I live with my wife at 1200 Fulcher. And as you can see, there's a little confusion about where this thing is being requested from. And that is, if you're familiar with the road that goes from the water tower right along the river, you know that you go a little ways, it drops down. Drops down, it goes from Fulcher to River Run. So there's a number of us that are listing at a Fulcher address, and because we're right there, and we're the ones along with River Run contingency, they're going to be impacted by this. And the short-term rental, is going to impact the neighborhood and how the neighborhood functions. So I think this is, as we can see, there's confusion. Hopefully we can straighten that out completely and totally, and we can get into a situation where we're not having the short-term rentals there on River Run that impact us on Fulcher Street as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just making sure everyone is organized. Okay, so we are going to start the public hearing for 7 Oaks. We'll be starting with Candy. Charger.
I'm Katie Cargill and I live at 1605 Kenny and I own Hill Country Real Estate just right over here. I am speaking against the change for the Seven Oaks. I really would have been the Hermans and their architect or the planner. It is a beautiful plan, but it is a beautiful plan for a different spot and possibly a different town. That commercial just doesn't fit there, neither does the high density residential. I tried my best to make that, as I was looking at the zoning map, to make it low density. But it is an R2 area and should remain an R2 area. I have no problem with them being homes there, but not commercial, not municipal, not townhomes, and not apartments. We cannot, our infrastructure is crumbling below our feet right now. We simply need a moratorium on building anything right now until we figure out where we stand on everything. That's it. I appreciate everybody. Do what's right for my health.
So we do have a letter that was sent in that was asked to be read in public comments. Do you
I don't know.
think he's not terrible at reading?
To the esteemed members of the P and Z Commission, I am unable to attend this important meeting due to a longstanding commitment. Thank you for reading the statement into the record. Regarding the proposed Seven Oaks PDD, I strongly encourage the P and Z Commission to reject the development plans as currently presented for a number of vital reasons. As you know, this property is currently zoned R2, which is medium density residential. This zoning gives potential developers fairly wide latitude in how to develop the land. To gain a variance or rezoning, they must show how their proposal better serves the community than this current zone. In my opinion, the plan as presented most definitely does not better serve Blanco, but instead would irreparably damage our town. The proposed development includes a retail strip center and municipal complex on Elm Street, a massive, approximately 70+ unit apartment complex just off Fulcher and Elm, plus 20 high-density townhomes and 33 small, approximately quarter-acre home sites. This high-density housing, a total of some 125 units, about double what it would be if it remained R2, would easily accommodate 500 new permanent residents, which would effectively increase the entire population of Blanco by about 1/3, and with it proportional traffic, road wear, water use, public safety, and crime concerns, and so on. Were this proposed for somewhere away from our city center with easy access, say across from Tractor Supply on 281 or further south, it might make sense once we get a handle on our infrastructure issues. Where this is proposed, however, is inexplicable. Sticking a high-traffic, high-density development in this quiet neighborhood adjacent to our Crown Jewel State Park behind the Catholic Church with no direct access off Main Street is simply a community killer. As it sits without significant re-engineering, the only access to this property is down Elm Street and over the narrow one-lane low water crossing, or around the quiet edge of the state park down from Fulcher to Elm Street, or down horribly deteriorated Mesquite Street. Either that, or by illegally cutting through the CJ's or church parking lots. For years to come, these narrow, fragile residential roads would be heavily trafficked by high-impact cement trucks and other construction vehicles. Forever after that, it would be in continual heavy use by the high-density apartment, townhome, and small lot residents, by delivery trucks and customers to the retail strip center, and by daily traffic to the proposed municipal complex there. The very thought of this is baffling to me. Say goodbye forever to this pretty sleepy historic Riverside neighborhood.
That was from my corner. Okay, next we've got Gail McClung.
I'm Gail McClellan, and I live at 1510 Green Lawn. Just right next door to us, 7 homes have been approved on 2 acres. Just down the street on Green Lawn is Los Altos. And all the traffic and all the upheaval that will be. We don't really live in the Blanco that I've always known. And I would like to have an impact somehow to slow the changes down. You know, this development at Seven Oaks, it presents a lot of red flags, and I agree wholeheartedly with everyone who's spoken already. But there are some things to be considered. If I can read my notes, I'll tell you what they are. One is our septic system. I've been told that there are places in town that people walk across raw sewage to get to places. I've been to the roads, you all know the roads. I don't ever write about the roads because at least it slows people down. If they gotta go over the potholes, at least they don't go. So, our natural resources are such that we just don't have the natural resources. Look at the lack of rain that we have. The river, it used to be that before all the water development, that if the water was a foot low at the Wayne Smith Dam, you were gonna run out of water in a month. Well, I don't know when we're gonna run out of water, but all of these developments either drill wells or want part of our water in Blanco, and we can't do that. So these red flags are for all developments, but especially that beautiful place that they're thinking about messing up. So I just want to keep a little bit of the nature of Blanco that's left. And I would like a moratorium on building until we get our septic fixed, our roads fixed, our water fixed, until we can guarantee that people who move in here some services. That's all I really have to say, but I just hope that will slow down all the people who just want money from our little town and ask for people to come in who really love us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we got General Haas.
I'm Jonelle Haas. I live at 454 Orchard Lane. Although I don't live in town, I'm involved in everything in town. I'm also on the County Historical Commission as chair, and I'm working with TxDOT right now, the lead force on that as it's coming through Blanco. We have big enough problems with that right there, trying to slow them down, to work with us, to make other alternatives for routes, or to take care of our historical value and natural resources as the springs, waters, everything else, environment. The last thing we need is a big development like that with more problems in our streets. The water situation in Blanco County is dire. Has Canyon Lake gone dry? Yes, it has. Has Blanco City water been without? Yes, it has. And that's not a 100-year drought. I'm not 100 years and I've seen it several times. So please stop. Let's put a moratorium. Let's gather together. Try to come up with some solutions. We are going to change. We're going to grow. We all know that. Do I want it? No, but it's going to happen. So let's work together for the better of this community instead of what the money people want, and continue to bring in so many people and so many changes and destroy our hill country town. We have one Blanco, Texas in the rural hill country. Let's start taking care of it. Let's all band together and come up with a plan. Please deny this. Thank you.
Okay, I am so sorry, I can't quite read this. I think it says something close to Jan Granby.
Hello.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. I'm Jean Kramer, and I live at 804 East Street. And I just wanted to come and address the council to deny the 7 Oaks development. I think, like everyone said, we need to get back to the basics. We need to worry about our water system. We need to get that up and running, our streets, our sewer. We need to slow down and not
approve things that's gonna benefit, I'm not saying y'all, but benefit certain people. And having the city hall moved into that area is ridiculous. It needs to stay here on the square. It needs to be our small town atmosphere. And I hope y'all review it and deny the development. Thank you.
All right, next we got Sarah Knippa.
Hi. I am going to repeat some things that have already been said, but as you can see, the number of citizens that are here tonight, this new development behind CJ's is very concerning. All the efforts of shutting this down should be considered, but let me speak on the soil of this designated area. It is known that this land has old style pesticides and herbicides, plus industrial fuel from old equipment. Soil contamination occurs when improper hazardous chemicals are buried or spilled, or have migrated into uncontaminated soil, such as hydrocarbons and heavy metals. They find their way into the earth, altering the natural soil environment. During the application of pesticides and fertilizers or through chemical and industrial processes, generally soil contamination is cited as a consequence of non-organic farming practices, industrial activity, and improper waste disposal. This needs to be tested prior to proceeding with any development. Unless you want to tell me that you are okay with our children playing in unsafe soil territories. A matter of fact, has the developer of Zero Lot Lines tested that soil? They are trying to create a green space for children to play. What are those results? If unsure, then it needs to be tested too. There may be growth that wants to come to Blanco, but we need water, our infrastructure needs to be fixed, the sewage system needs to reach a solution in Rocking J. The issues with individual citizens having access to city sewage needs to happen. This list goes on. We need to get the infrastructure where it needs to be for citizens of Blanco before we add anything more to our already stressed infrastructure. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Okay,
7 Oaks.
Sandra Acosta.
Sandra Acosta, my address is 18 Elm Street. I'm here to agree with what everybody else is saying. The city should be responsible and fix the issues we have already with our infrastructure before adding more homes to the city. And so I hope that it remains an R2 area and that you vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's Wendy Smith.
Hi, I'm Wendy Smith. I have property at 1009 Fremont and another one on Lazy Creek. I'm here to oppose the Seven Oaks development. Overall, this is a high-density development that would be detrimental to our community. Our infrastructure is crumbling apart with the current population. The damage that would occur by allowing communities like this would be devastating to the surrounding streets and our sewage system. So, this is not such good stuff, but I'm not sure if many of you know this, but there are a lot of people that have older homes in city limits, and they don't even put their toilet paper in the commodes, because if they do, they're gonna have the sewage backed up. And as Gail mentioned, sewage seeping around in yards. I'm actually someone who has stepped in somebody's sewage that's seeping out into their yard. So that tells you how bad our systems are. Then I wanted to bring up something else too. Usually everybody says, oh, the more houses, more residents we have, then the tax are going to increase and fuel the city better. Well, I want to read something that Connie Barron actually brought up at a P&Z meeting on June 14th of 21. She says, we don't get money from people moving into town. It's very important to understand that. The ad valorem taxes are limited to state law. Many have exemptions for different things on their property. People don't want their property taxes going up. Taxes on residential properties do not fuel our city. The more restrictions, or the more residences, the more infrastructure we must have in our city. Don't think residents will help fuel our city. It will be the businesses that will help fund the future of our town with their sales revenues. And people will be coming into our town and spending that money that aren't living here. So they're not going to be increasing anything with the infrastructure costs. While growth is inevitable, it needs to be done responsibly. The streets are crumbling around us, and you know, some of those potholes, you go into them, you think you might not have come out. And I already spoke to the sewers. Until we address and fix the problems, I'd encourage the moratorium on any new water taps and building permits. And then the other thing, just really hearing that 500 new residences in that area. I have a property within 200 feet of the Los Altos subdevelopment. And, we've been concerned about, there's probably gonna be at least 2 cars, which are 21 resident subdivisions. So, you're looking at 42 cars in this little bitty area, which Cedar Street is now gonna get green space. I can't imagine the 500 residences.
Andrew Porter.
Good evening. I didn't have anything prepared, but I definitely wanted to state that basically what everyone's saying, just back it up. I'm a builder myself, and I don't need a development that big to put money in my pocket. And the last thing I would do would be giving back to my community. I do live in the neighborhood right across the street from that. As it is right now, we have major issues with people going too fast on that road. We have kids that stand out right outside our neighborhood. There's no lighting, there's nothing. It's a dangerous thing, any way you want to look at it. So I don't want to nitpick. But overall, the infrastructure alone speaks for itself. I've been here almost 18 years. It hasn't gotten better, it's gotten worse. And the biggest thing, it's greed. It's money. And that's all it is. You can sell that property right now and retire the way it is. You don't need to do a development to make that happen. And obviously it's calling people out namelessly, but they need to really, search their hearts and see what God wants them to do with this community. It's not that. Everyone knows it. Anyone that's involved in this or thinks otherwise needs to get educated, needs to talk to a professional what it's going to do. The crime rate will go up. Someone will get hit out there standing there waiting for their school bus. We have major issues with the new construction workers that are in town as it is. My gym's affected by it. My rental's been affected by it. Overall, it's just chaos. So I fully oppose this and hope you guys shut it down. Thank you.
Allison Leeser.
Allison Leeser, I live on 1519 Mesquite Street. And I'm here to request that the P&Z panel consider denying the proposal the way it's being submitted. The development of our Senate is a very detailed proposal. It has a lot of moving parts and is loaded with potential incentives for the city. However, I don't think it's aligned with the current Blanco or even the future, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, Blanco, in the high density areas, retail, commercial, townhomes, apartments. I believe that is an inappropriate area for that type of development. It is zoned R2. That means you guys already looked at the city and looked at what might be best suited there and decided that R2 would be best. The similar home sites that are there right now are R2, and that's what benefits that area and that section of town, considering infrastructure, considering access, and considering what's in on now and in the future. I don't think that the plan makes sense when what in reality is there. There's questionable potential uses as far as the Town Creek area that is a zone A floodplain. From what I understand, that's not a suitable place for a high metro or playground or municipal area. I don't think it's the appropriate place for City Hall to be. I don't think it provides the parking for the townhomes and the density that will be there in that affordability housing. The access from 281 to retail doesn't really make sense for business owners, as a small business owner myself. So we never consider taking out a commercial lease space or retail space in an area of direct access from the main traffic highway artery area. And the areas you would have to go would be funny, you have to go around. I travel a lot and never had to drive around an odd way into a neighborhood like that or into a commercial area. So I think that there are parts of it that make sense. A large part of it doesn't make sense and it needs to be reviewed. And I don't believe any zoning variances would be necessary for this vote. Like it's gonna grow. I don't think this is the appropriate type of growth for that area. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and looks like the last one I've got is Justin Myers.
Hey y'all, how are y'all doing tonight? The basic thing is that our neighborhood has always been a residence. We are all residential property. We do not have any desire to grow beyond residential property. There is no reason to bring commercial down across from the church. There's no reason to bring City Hall down there. That belongs here on the square. It doesn't belong anywhere else but here on the square. You know, our town, I've watched it grow in my lifetime. My family's watched it grow in there. And the proposed settlement is not in the direction that our town is supposed to grow. That is more something that plays an offset for some large city. It would offset our people, our water, our roads, our infrastructure, everything. It would not, I can't see one good that would come out of it. So I'm firmly opposed to the new subdivision, the new 7 Oaks. And I hope that y'all will understand this to be the same, opposed to that ridiculous development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Looks like, trying to see if we have any comments on these other last two here. Okay, so the next one is the Uptown Blanco Retreat House at 514 3rd Street. I believe we've got Moses Hawk.
Yeah.
So.
My name is Moses Hawk. I'm the manager with Uptown Blanco. I think what I have to say tonight is probably different than everything else on the agenda. We are, from what I can see, the only commercial zone area there. And mostly I'm speaking now to try to find out some answers, even if I get them a little later. We have been to the city several times. We put an application for STR back in June. That was supposed to be at least talked about. I was supposed to hear back by August and then September, then November, and now it's March. So I approached the city with that application to ask if we should apply for an STR, as we are not residential. I was told we were one of the few exceptions, perhaps, that kind of fits outside the box. I understand those always exist. And so we're trying to figure out what's going on, because looking at, it doesn't say exclusively residential, but that's the language in STR. We also don't really fit in a typical hotel. We're not like a motel. We don't have separate interests. We don't rent out rooms individually like a hotel may. So I wanted to at least address this in a public hearing before anything goes into the business hearing and approval, because I don't want to get inappropriate approval for our business across the street. So I'm not here to hear an answer necessarily, but I would like you to hold off on any approval if anyone thought that might happen until we know we're applying for the right thing, and I hear back from the city as well. And any input your committee has would help great as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's talk. Okay. So on Sunset Ridge, it does not look like we have anybody signed up. And then the next one, we go to Aqua Blue at 413 9th Street. Looks like I've got Roy Benton.
Yes, sir.
Are you doing the presentation on this one, or are you just planning to speak in the public comment?
It's just a simple request, right on Main Street.
I don't have a representation for, is this for the special use permit or for the short term?
He has two projects. He has the SCP for Carlot 808 Main, and he also has the STR on 9th Street, right?
Yes.
Right, this one doesn't have anything specified, but I assume you would be presenting during the new business?
Yeah.
That's fine. We'll just put it off till we get to the new business and you can discuss that. Does that work? All right. Okay, so that
Is that for
is,
later tonight or?
Yes.
we're gonna get to that in just a minute. Okay, so that is everybody that signed up to speak for public, open public hearing. We're going to close this and we're going to move to close public hearing. Okay, so new business. Warren, did you want to?
Thank you, residents. Planning Commission, P&Z. So first item, new business was, the short-term LG River House at 1240 River Run. When this got put together by council, we wanted to really look at making sure that the STRs that came in were done in a responsible manner. And that's why you have the ordinance that you have. We've looked at all of the everything, and the only issue on that property, I think, was that depending on how you do the math and how you look. So one of the issues with that is there's the idea of 10% was supplied. There's a 10%, you can only have an STR on 10% of your property, 10% of that block. So if you look at it as a block, it would be under 10% if you look at it from that standpoint, against street stops, it would be actually all the way down to where it becomes River Run, and I guess you're looking at 12 or 13% of it one of that, because I think one I'll explain is that. So from the standpoint of everything else in there, they met the requirements. So for you as P&Z will look at whether that 10% has not been met or not. And then also I'll remind you that you're making a recommendation to council. So it's not that you're approving or not approving something that's bad. So questions to staff.
So in regarding the short-term rental, and if we recommend or don't recommend city council, they're the final approval.
Yes.
But in a situation, and I know this one's got a little bit different situation because it's deed restricted not to have a short-term rental. That then gonna go on the map as a short-term rental permit, which could potentially knock someone else out that would be clear to have a short-term rental based on their deed restrictions, because it would be marked as a potentially given short-term rental.
So the answer is, if it's a short-term rental where the person doesn't live there, then if they lived at that site and rented it, then it would count against the cap. But if they don't live there, which I think is the case, then you're right, it would actually stop someone else from having a short-term rental. It basically block them out, or could block them out. Again, this is a guide. I will say that the council, myself, the council made it clear that we're not looking at deed restrictions. So, and I'll tell you why I know that, because staff asked for, in the UDC updates, to ask for a title report, and that was denied by council because they don't want us pulling the restriction. So that is where we're at. The answer to your question is yes, that could possibly block somebody out from putting the SDR in that location.
Or why would they block that out?
The one thing they allowed was for us to ask for its deed, so we could show what the ownership was, make sure that we understood what ownership is, but they didn't want to deal with deed restrictions. We don't enforce deed restrictions. That's the reason why. Because if you can't ask for a title report, final plat, then you can't ask for deed restrictions. Obviously, as a person with planning background, if I saw a title report that had deed restrictions, I asked for them. I asked for the easements, I asked for everything on the line, just to look at it. So in doing that action, basically the council doesn't want to review the deed restrictions. That's the answer.
So this would essentially be the last STR on the Fulcher River Run, open permit available. We'd have two, and that would more than likely, based on what's written in the STR.
If you follow the 10% strictly, then the answer is yes. And obviously, like you said, it was written as a guide, but yes, that basically will take out anything on River Run or Fulcher, pretty much up to Main Street. I mean, it would knock it all out because it was big lots.
I think Heinz gonna want to say something.
I have one question. Are short-term rentals considered a commercial enterprise?
Are they commercial enterprises? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, my question was, are short-term rentals considered commercial activity?
I guess they're considered commercial activity, but they're usually in residential districts, which is why, so because they're not allowed in C1. So they're not allowed in C1, but they are commercial in nature.
Because they pay hotel tax.
They pay hotel tax, right? But they're not allowed in commercial districts. Normally, although I think this other one will allow it, but that's normal.
So since the city doesn't police their deed restriction, it's up to the neighbors to police their deed restrictions.
Yes.
And then if the citizens in that neighborhood police their deed restrictions, and it turns out they're not allowed, then that would come off the list.
That's correct. I mean, there's kind of a situation where it would appear that the deed restrictions say that you can't do it, but the ordinance, our ordinance doesn't recognize that.
So who would police that?
Lawyers, right? So Tim, I'm gonna actually let you answer that. We have the city attorney. Tim?
I gotta unmute him.
We're gonna unmute you.
Maybe.
What's the question?
Who's responsible for policing the rule if the city's not recognizing the rule, but the rule is in the deed restriction? I don't understand how you could give a permit for something that's recorded not allowed.
She's not enforcing deed restrictions. Who's gonna be doing that? It's not us, so I guess that's.
No, it's the private owners who may be affected by a violation, if there is one. But I would notice, however, that by definition, if you will, an STR permit being commercial in nature, acts independent of a single family residential deed restriction, because it's technically arguable whether it really violates that restriction or not. The permit itself doesn't affect, this is the argument that someone might make. The permit itself doesn't change the underlying residential deed restriction. And the city takes no position on that, as Warren has pointed out. The private owners would be in the position to enforce it and to seek relief. Does that answer your question?
So this time that the applicant is here, the owner, they feel free to speak.
So
Owner or applicant of this project on River Run.
I assume the reason the city doesn't take a position on that is because of litigation, because then they could be held, if there's no position held, rather than deciphering the deed restrictions on individual properties, that puts the city in a position of being held liable or limited.
Yeah, so I'll answer that. That's why this city doesn't do that. Some cities do actually look at deed restrictions. They have a whole staff that does that. We don't do that.
But I still think even though they've applied for it, they're not here and apparently all the neighbors don't want it. So then in some respects, you could say it's impactful to the neighborhood, which is part of the ordinance.
Well, we've had many neighbors speak out against STRs and we've still approved them because they met the criteria and of the STR ordinance that was written. And I think it's picking and choosing which neighborhood gets affected and which neighborhood isn't affected by STRs when we have written out a percentage rather than and made it such that it's based on zoning and a percentage of a block so that it affects us all evenly.
So this is the first STRs I've seen come to P&Z.
Well, yes, but there has been, I mean, there was the ordinance itself, brought a lot of comment on it.
So a bunch of them are grandfathered in, I think
Yeah.
12, and these are the first batch that we had, and I'm sorry.
There was a 60-day moratorium on new ones. So like 12 existing ones got grandfathered in, and these are the first 5 new ones that are going for review.
I personally feel like I want to honor deed restrictions, like, I mean, they're written in there and recorded. And I know the city doesn't recognize that, and then the guy is not here to ask for it in person.
The city doesn't advocate for anybody. I always tell people they want their project to be approved, they have to advocate, but that's what it is.
And they were all noticed that the meeting was tonight.
I make the motion to deny.
I second the motion.
All right, we've got a motion. Any conversation about it? All in favor of denying? All in favor of approving? Okay, denied. And it's a suggestion to city council.
Tomorrow.
Okay, the next one is going to be the PDD for 7 Oaks Plan Development.
You want the applicant to go first on this? So they can make a presentation.
My name's Matt Hurt, and I live at 33 Elm Street. I apologize, it didn't generate much interest tonight. Anyway, my wife and I, Martha, have enjoyed 38 years here in Michael. That's almost 4 decades living in the city limits. Good Lord willing, we're going to stay here in the city of Michael. Looking back, I was on the first planning and zoning commission and was the chairman Amos Baker several years ago. And the UDC and the comprehensive master plan stated then and is true today. What you need here are rooftops or homes. And so the growth is in every direction. As a matter of fact, if you look at the UDC, it states in there about the last sentence where it refers to mixed use developments, it says my location is an ideal situation for high density. The growth has come to Blanco, but let's look around. People are moving into Blanco County, but they're not moving into the city. And the city's losing sales tax, you're losing ad valorem tax, and you're putting an increased burden on the citizens that are already here. Growth and change creates fear. Some people understand that. But let's look at some of the growth and the change we've had. Lindman's Groceries over here on the corner of 4th Street, 281. Used to be you could walk in there and get your couple pounds of ground meat from Lester and you go in and get your pair of overalls. Now that's gone. It's now Uptown Textile. You go over here and you get to Red and White Grocery, that's on the south side of the courthouse. And they used to have the red dot logo in there. You go in there, go down the basement, get you a couple items, come on back up, check out, and get your groceries. Now it's Cranberries. The hardware store on the north end over there used to go in there and I bought some, I hate plumbing, but I bought plumbing boards back then. And you look up on the wall and you can see how much rain you got the last year. But now we all know that that's Red Bug Cafe. I'm sorry. Now I'm at the Red Dot Road, I'm sorry, that was Cranberries, that's Cranberries. Now we've got, what is it, Texas Regional Bank, it used to be Blanco National Bank, Mr. Posey. That's not there anymore, that's changed. On the south end of the Shy Side, you got Tractor Supply. Just recently over here, you've got, what is it, you got a distillery, and you got an art gallery that's still got up. Well, that's been changed. But change has been good for Blanco. But Blanco's got to change when it changes its course. You got to be careful. There've been numerous projects on our property since we've been there for several years. We've had developers want to come in and build what I say are not heartening to the Blanco character. One character out of one corporation out of Marble Falls. He wanted to come in and offer us money. Wanted to put in 180 RV slots and trailer parks because it's close to the state park. Then there was another guy that wanted to come in out of Church, Texas. He wanted to buy the place and then wanted to go ahead and put in low income housing. That ain't good for Michael either. And yeah, I could sell my place. I could make a lot of money, but as soon as I did, you'd have somebody like Blue Homes come in and they would have brought 400 or 500 homes in here, and then they'd take the council to the city and they'd go sue you until they got what they want. That's not good for Blanco. We had a few offers, that's true. But what we want is something that's good for Blanco. Things change. Some folks can recall that I used to have a rail fence up around my property. And to give you an idea how fast things go. I got tired of seeing it, and I got tired of maintaining the thing, so I tore it down myself. And it wasn't like another day later, somebody comes up to me and says, well, you finally did it. You sold the Walmart. That never happened. Walmart didn't even come in about it. Now, even today, there's a rumor going around, somebody spreading the eyes saying, I'm gonna put 500 homes on the place. None of that's true. I'm not gonna do that. I wanna do what's good for it. We also have a problem. We're getting older and men alive, and the city needs growth. You need houses. We've been working on ideas for over 12 years. I can show you a bunch of money I wasted on some architects out of Austin. They had good ideas, but didn't want to use them. It wasn't the right time either. But what we want to do here is we thought, we're here right next to City Hall. We got a park. And it just so happens that a fellow named Arlen Benzall, who I bought the property that I'm on, him and his brother donated the park to the city. And we kind of like to follow an example of him and give the city another park where the citizens can use it. Parks can provide recreational opportunity. They can spur your economy. And actually, when they ask the chief, they might even cut down on some of your crime and help you with environmental impact too. And the new city administration building, everybody says, no, we want to put it there. If you go look at Wimberley, they've got a city hall, I think it's about 1.5 miles outside of town. I don't know how they did that. I didn't want to cloud the issue on that. But if you bring in a new city hall, it's going to be good for the citizens and it's going to be good for visitors. You're going to have, it'll show culture, it'll be business life, healthcare, and it'll show transparency, both literally and physically. If you remember back in December of 21, I showed up at City Council meeting and gave a presentation on the concept that I'm talking about tonight. I'm talking about giving over 3 acres to the city for a park and a city hall. And given this land, it's approving the PDD, it's going to accomplish the goal a lot for the city, and it's going to be good. So we're here tonight to present a proposal that will benefit both of us. I'm asking you to approve the planned development district, or what we call PDD, of 22.9 acre development that will include giving land for the park and city hall. And it includes economic development tools. It will include walking trails throughout the whole area. It would include approximately 33 1-acre tracts of land for single family residential. It would include a small retail space. I'm not talking about a big place. And it would include some townhomes or garden homes. We're not settled on that yet. But of course, it's not gonna happen overnight, you know, things happen slow, especially when they're talking about development. This will all come in phases, and that'll be fast. So this particular PDD, it helps cover the zoning for the city administration, and it gets you to the city park, it gets you to the administration building. And it helps the P and Z actually do away with the constant problem y'all always had with spot zoning. You know, it takes care of it. They don't have to come in and fix me another time. Anyway, that's what I want to do. Yeah, I appreciate it. Consider it. I'd like to see you accept it. If you have any detailed questions, I'll try and answer them. If not, I'll have my associate, Ms. Blakely, over here. She can do that.
Sure, we're gonna have a few questions more. Did you want to go first? Did you want us to?
No, I want them to go ahead and make the presentation. But yeah,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
right, I want the applicant to go before the city.
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Blakely Fernandez. I'm with Bracewell, and I'm going to walk through the proposal. This is a really educated audience, and it sounds like a lot of them have read it, so I'm not trying to be redundant, but I just want to make sure that we go through all the pieces and everyone's on the same page. So the site plan there shows the first two phases of the proposal. The green area up at the top is 2.03 acres that is proposed to be dedicated for parkland. That would go to the city for parkland and open space. Item D, that blue square, is the site for the city administration building. That's about an acre, so that it would include adequate parking as well as the building. And then the blue public road would be developed by the developer and dedicated to the city. In terms of the neighborhood, in phase 1 and 2, you see 33 home sites there. The smallest site is 1/4 of an acre. The largest site is 0.39 of an acre. And then in the lighter pink area, that's a buffer area. So it says townhomes there. We've talked about it being townhomes, or it could be duplexes or triplexes. It'd be something that would be other than single family home, to be transitional between residential and the governmental building, and then the commercial to the side. That commercial would face out onto Elm Street.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, so phase 3, do you mind if I step away from the microphone for 1 second? Phase 3, this box here, the lower box shows what we talked about as phase 1 and 2, and the upper box is what we're talking about for phase 3. Phase 3 is proposed at 3.96 acres for multifamily. We've proposed a limit of 18 units per acre. Traditionally in Lenco, multifamily would be 24 units per acre. So we've tried to recognize it needs to be smaller than traditional multifamily. We want to have green space and room for that to fit into the neighborhood. Next slide. So the Seven Oaks PDD fits well into the PDD purposes in your UDC. That is designed for flexible development, and so we've proposed to preserve open space, increase recreational open space for public use. We're proposing tree preservation. The bulk of the trees are either in the residential area on 2 specific sites, they'd be preserved, and then the open space has some significant trees. We've got the site donation for municipal use, and then the appropriate buffer between single-family housing and commercial and governmental buildings, as well as compliance with the city's comprehensive plan. Next slide. The application lays out development standards, and that's part of the purpose of a PDD application, so that you know what the development standards are going to be. We've restricted the use according to the maps in the application, and restricted the density, with the multifamily being at 18 units instead of the 24 outlined in your code. The residential size requirements, lots will be not less than 1/4 of an acre. That's the traditional size of American single-family home lots. If you live in a neighborhood, in virtually any community, it's likely your lot is 1/4 of an acre. Homes would be not smaller than 1,200 square feet, and we've got garage and carport language in the application. There's a height restriction across the district at 35 feet. That's about 2.5 stories. We had proposed that the multifamily be 3 stories. I was trying to update this presentation. The city manager asked us to keep everything at 2 stories. Our application actually has a 2-story restriction to it. Next slide, please. Oh, can we go back? I wanted to touch on a few infrastructure comments that were made. This neighborhood would connect to sewer, so it would not be septic. And we would anticipate that there would be some proportional responsibility for road improvements. TIA would come with the actual platting, because it's just a little premature right now to do that. And if there's pieces that would move, what we're proposing is it would not be greater than any of this, but it could be less than. And so the TIA would coordinate with TxDOT and with the city, but that would come at the time of platting. Okay. So just for an example, we don't have a development plan that's this detailed, but this shows you what sample house plans might look like on a 1/4 acre lot. What I've laid out for you is the size by bedroom and baths. Square footage tends to be in the high 2000s, and then what the width and depth of these homes would be. So there's 2 here. I've got 2 more on the next slide. And then next slide. So these are 2 examples of what a multifamily project at the 70, the ones I found were 72 acres. The one on the left is in San Diego. That's over 2 stories, so it would have to be shorter than that one. The one on the right shows a layout that has extensive green space. What unfortunately we weren't able to pull up tonight, but maybe I can just pass it around, is another project that we found in Ohio. This is a multifamily project that is geared towards senior living, and it's got cottages that are smaller than you would normally have for single family. They're closer together, but it's a senior project. So the idea is the neighborhood is very condensed and walkable, and there's support services for senior living. So maybe, sorry, I wasn't able to get that out from this slide. All right, next slide. So I just laid out the steps that we've taken to date, kind of into tonight's hearing. The next step would be have determination tonight to move on to city council. There'd be a donation agreement. The donation agreement would be tied into the PDD. They would be connected together. You wouldn't have one without the other. So the PDD would require the donation of the land we discussed to the city. And then there'd be an ordinance closing on the donated land, and then platting and site plans. That would also involve the TIA and the drainage. All right, thank you.
And once it comes up, my presentation is not quite as polished, so,
Doesn't like me.
I have a hard time remembering all this. We're actually making her do double duty tonight. She doesn't come to these meetings, so I really appreciate it. I'll go ahead and get started, but if you can still work on pulling that up. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about this project and what it really means. So you've got, we'll take a look at what the staff report said. They're looking at 33 single-family lots. They're about 1/2 acre, 1/4 acre, about 0.39 acres. City Hall, parkland, retail. There's kind of a buffer site of high-density residential. which would be townhomes. They're also looking at doing a whole family. So what I want you to do is not look at this as, right now you have no field, but compare it to what could happen if you didn't approve this PDD. So right now you have R2. Now R2 allows for 3 single-family homes per acre, which you multiply that by 22 acres. You're talking, I think we looked at about 65 homes. What they're looking at is a PDD will allow up to 124 units. But the truth is, it probably won't. Probably both scenarios are on the high end. So you have to kind of look at it from that standpoint. So let's look at that. Then let's look at the things that the city really needs. I know everybody has different opinions, but I first of all want to explain what the city staff, what administration's responsibilities here. It is to actually give you and give the city the best program, the best thing that we possibly can. The growth is going to happen, so we work with the developer to try to figure that out. And so that's the role that we're looking at. And one of the things is do you as a city want 64 homes that might be kind of the same looking, kind of, in that spot, or do you want a mixed use? When the developer first came to me, we wanted to look at a mixed use. And the biggest thing, I'll tell you the 2 biggest things that we really like. So we really like the idea of having multifamily, we really like the idea of having 2-acre park. 2-acre park. Right now, what they would be required to do if they actually had just the 64 homes, do about 0.7 acre park. Really can't get much on that. I do agree that there is most of it's in the floodplain. That you can do that. You can have a park in the floodplain. You've got parking in the floodplain. There's a lot of things you can do. What you would actually be looking at though is having combination both park and city hall together. A lot of places have that. Where I came from, Sealy had that as well. So that is why that is a really good project. I want to talk a little bit about city infrastructure. Been here about a year. We've had a lot of issues with city infrastructure, no doubt. No doubt the applicant lives on 2 streets that have problems. But that's not the developer's fault. It may become part of the problem, that's not their fault. And so the fact that we have 50-year-old streets with 50-year-old infrastructure is something the city will have to start to take care of. Can't do that without money, can't do that without development. How things get developed and get improved is through development. And that's what we're talking about here. I want to talk a little bit about, I'm really hoping you get that up. I
don't know what is happening. Are you on this?
Sorry, I should have gone first. Okay, so anyway, having said that, having said that, and kind of getting that out. Let's talk about what the developer done asking for. Every time we've had a major project here, the developer wants help. They want a public improvement district. They want inside city mud. They want some kind of curves. Had a couple of presentations the last year where they were asking for that, those very things. Public improvement district will be asking for future owners to actually help pay for that infrastructure coming in through a 25-year program, and then put up a bond and then you pay it off. Developers not doing that here. MUD works similarly in the fact that they get their infrastructure paid, they sell a bond, they get out. That's how most developers do. So let's talk a little bit about what you need to be looking at and where you come in as a P&Z. P&Z, City Council doesn't have time to spend an hour on a project, doesn't have time for workshops. That is what you're doing here. So kind of the point where I do now.
I thought computer stuff is bad.
City infrastructure. Okay, so I'm gonna go through the recommendation, and I'm gonna explain for you as a P and Z workshop. So the recommendation from the staff is to approve the PDD with following conditions. I would ask you to also approve this, but look at conditions that you want, things that you want better. You want better deal from the developer than what they offer. This is a negotiation. Again, we talk about this not a zone change. This is like doing a variance. It's like doing an SUP. So this is at the point where you can ask for things that you want. Okay. So, request.
Can you keep it down just a little bit?
Recommendations, traffic impact study to be submitted during final plat. As mentioned, a lot of the reason for that is because we don't know everything.
Why the final plat? Why not the board?
Because we're not gonna know what we need at this point now. If you want, you could ask for it at a certain time after. Well, I'll get back to that in a minute.
Preliminary plat.
They'll do the recommendation.
If they do it at preliminary plat.
Correct, but there isn't a preliminary plat here. You have a concept plan and a PDD together, which is what this is, and then you have final plat. Let me get through the recommendation and I'll answer questions. Traffic impact study to be submitted during final plat. The developer to agree to participate in cost sharing program to help improve the culvert on Elm Street north of the proposed PDD. The program will be approved by city council and funded before completion of phase 1 and phase 2. And then additional conditions or recommendations for doing. I'll explain number one, because we don't have a clear plan. And also, remember, this is a concept. We're not gonna solve all the world's problems with PDD or the concept of it. That comes at a later time. Number two, we're coming up with a cost sharing program, and we want the developer to agree to that now. I will be coming up with a cost what we'll take to improve that culvert. We're probably gonna improve it to 24 foot. Right now, it's about 15 or 16 foot, a 24-foot rails. And then any additional conditions or recommendations that you find appropriate. Questions of staff?
Sorry.
I don't
have questions. All right, so with the recent improvement of the water and sewer plant, did the improvement did the improvement include for growth, or did it only, the upgrade only include for the residents that are currently here?
Part of the wastewater?
And it's, yeah, water and sewer plant, the recent upgrades.
Yeah, the sewer upgrade, we are now operating at about 50, bouncing between 50 and 56%. So when you get to 75%, you have to have a plan with TCQ of how you're going to fund improvements. So on the water plant, that will, basically we have, as you know, I mean, you don't know yet, we have 1,200 acre feet of water. That is not the same as continuous service, it has service issues, but we actually have a capacity of 1,200, we're only using 400. That's 600 in the lake, that's 600 in the stream. Which obviously right now we have an issue using 600 in the stream, but you actually have a capacity of 1,200. So that actually would cover, this is infill. The reason why this is exciting to the city is this is infill. We already have the water, we already have the sewer. Actually, now can you push it up?
So do we have the capacity now to support this development?
Yes, we do. We have,
No,
yeah.
we don't. No.
Not really, no, not with our own water.
Excuse me, everybody, come on. Okay, so, yes, we do have capacity. Again, continuous service, something, same issue as capacity. Can you pull it up now?
No, it's not what
All right, one of the slides we have is the water and sewer. and they are continually through and all throughout the park. A lot of community development, we actually have water search, you know, don't have to hear that. Why? It's like,
So the developers, agreed to improve the one culvert. Is he gonna improve any of the other roads that go into that location that are outside of his development?
so the city is going to look at improving, first of all,
Which slide do you want?
let's go to,
Oh, we're back over.
keep going.
No, I got a ton of questions.
Okay.
Go
Oh,
back.
sick. Go back.
I want to show them the utility plan. So there's your water and sewer. What was the other question? That's actually their site and where everything comes through. And there's.
So my question is, I understand there are utilities there.
Correct.
But can the plant handle it?
Yes,
Okay.
that's a thing.
My other questions were regarding the townhomes. In the deck, it doesn't show there's green space in the townhomes. And I'm not clear how many units those townhomes are.
So this is where you come in to actually talk about that. They're proposing 20.
20 units.
20 units for townhomes. And as far as the streets, I'm going to guess you're not going to have probably a house for another 18 to 24 months. That will give the city time to start looking at street improvement. But we'll need help on that bridge. That bridge is in stuff.
My other question is, I did notice too on the townhomes that they're looking for R5 designation on that in addition to the commercial. Is that correct?
That is, so on the commercial, I think they're asking for, are you asking for C1 or? They're asking for C1. So if you want to go ahead and go to the zoning.
And on the C1, what's the square footage of that? It wasn't mentioned.
They didn't mention it. I will say this, for most commercial, you actually don't need C1. As a P and Z recommend R5. Who wants? And that is.
But they didn't mention what that space is in that commercial zone. What's that square footage?
That's up to the applicant. I don't know if they know.
It's 2 acres. It's 2 acres.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only got a couple more questions. I noticed in the deck, it didn't show an example of a 1,200 square foot home. Do they have that? Of what they build at the 1,200? Because they don't have to build the 3,000 square foot that are shown. They could build all 1,200 square foot homes in there. And then will there be an HOA in that subdivision that's gonna pay for some of the stuff? I noticed that they're dedicating all the park for the city to care for and all the roads for the city to care for. Will there be any HOA or HOA dues that the residents themselves will care for?
So first of all, any interior streets that are created within that plat, can you go ahead and go back to the actual plat? That will have to be constructed by the developer. And then we go through what we call 1-year street acceptance or utility acceptance. So once it goes through a year of making sure that nothing fails on it, then it actually gets approved by council and gets basically annexed to the city as far as responsibility. So the maintenance then, once that happens, at the 1-year period, then it becomes a city street. So in between what's built and before it gets accepted, it's basically a private street.
So basically the developers aren't gonna maintain any ongoing care in that whole development once they build out.
They're not going to take care of the right of way. If there are any open space areas, they would have to take care of that. It's on private property. Anything that's public, like roads and then the park, will have to be taken care of by the city.
Because I noticed they mentioned there wasn't a thoroughfare road in the deck.
I guess I don't know, I'm not following.
So it didn't sound like it's a thoroughfare. In other words, it's not gonna be for people to be able to cut through.
Yes.
There was no thoroughfare.
Are we talking about the townhome?
I just assumed it was a blue road.
That's gonna actually be a public street
Okay.
after the 1-year street acceptance.
I think are most of our questions.
Thank you. That was all I had right now.
Just one question I have for Warren. I know there's several streets that can connect, onto 281. What's the proposal there?
Which way?
That's fine, the other one.
Okay.
So we'll need to do improvements on both Mesquite and Elm. We'll also have to look at whether we want to improve, we'll probably do that no-name street that connects Elm to basically Main Street where Josep's is. We'll also, and again, the TIA will have to identify certain things. I'm sure one of the things they're going to identify is the fact that we don't want cut through traffic through CJs.
Right.
But those, because we don't know exactly what they're doing yet, because this is basically a zoning document, concept plan that's not specifics yet, can't address those things yet.
But there are at least 2 areas, right, that the street doesn't go all the way through, but the city owns the property that could cut through.
There is, so on the table yet,
Okay.
because it, we have infrastructure has been here 40, 50 years. Yes, there's First Street. First Street, the actual right of way cuts through, not right now, sir. It doesn't cut through right now. No, the right of way does, not the actual, not built.
Right.
And actually, the businesses back there use it as part of it. I'm not saying that they can't move it, but that's for me.
So we speak with the developer, who wants to ask you the questions?
You can ask whichever you want.
Okay.
Someone.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think the first question that most people in the room have is, how are you gonna get there? It's going down Elm and Mesquite is gonna be the big issue. So as far as that culvert that goes through there, is that the main thing that's been discussed so far?
As far as the culvert?
Yeah, getting that part fixed and then the road and fixed it.
So for a safety standpoint, again, I suspect they'll probably 24 months before you have your first house, we're gonna have to reconstruct that culvert. We're gonna have to. I have spoken to Mr. Byers, and he has explained that that was built, not rebuilt in the 90s, and that's just.
Kind of growing up, we'll say more.
Well, it has to be reconstructed. It has to be reconstructed to today's standards. There's from the city standpoint, yes, the city's not the developer. From the city's opinion, there's no way you can have a one-way crossing. It's not the developer's fault that it was a small road, but it is going to become the developer and the city's problem together. That they put these cars on the street. It's gonna, basically we have to improve that so that not everybody wants to cut through CJs. I have to find a way. That's what the TIA will help us with. Make sure that we find ways not to CJs. Because we have to protect that business.
Stretching for a unicorn here. It's impossible.
Can you please let us have the meeting?
Yeah, but this is important. People need to hear the truth. We gave our neighborhood streets to the city less than 4 years ago. Has the city been in our neighborhood taking care of our roads? No. The city just did a patch job on the street. They do a good patch job.
Please have our meeting.
No, people need to hear this.
Water line.
Stop lying to people. And he's like the main advocate over here. This is crazy.
Water line.
Don't even entertain. This is not a plan. This is a presentation. Nix it. Move on.
Finish the conversation before making it. So can we finish the conversation? Or
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. Who else has questions?
So are you still is the city still in the negotiation stage with the developer, or have they been in the negotiation stage for a while to where this is sort of what it's coming down to for the decision?
So this is what it's coming down to. However, your responsibility as a board is to come up with some other things that you want. So for example, you say, no, we really want the TIA at this point, that's what it is. And if that's what you're gonna recommend, that's what you're gonna recommend. If you want to recommend certain things to council, you can, but this is the product that the staff and the developer agreed to. Actually, we just kind of threw in reconstructing the bridge. As I reviewed this, I realized that there was no way we couldn't do that. That has to be the first thing before we start fixing those streets. But this is the finished product, so to speak. And you'll come through, and the council will come through, and they'll ask them what they'll want.
And the traffic study with multifamily and townhomes, in my mind, it would probably require a street light there. So is the street light gonna be the responsibility of TxDOT to put in? Or would it be the city's responsibility to put one in if a street light was recommended?
Street light recommended where though?
Say on 281 or one of the main thoroughfares to get that many people with multifamily townhomes to see their homes. Commercial, you gotta remember, you don't just have those homes coming in and out. If you have commercial mixed use, you also have all those commercial visitors coming to use those businesses. So if a light is recommended, whose responsibility would that be?
It's gonna be the responsibility of the developer to construct any infrastructure is needed. So if a light is required, it's gonna be the developer that's gonna be required to build.
Okay.
City, at the one you're accepting, is not accept. If it's on 281, that will actually have to talk to TxDOT. But if you're talking about actually on the property, either on Elm or interior, then that would actually be the developer.
But what if the light's required at 281, would that be TxDOT?
That would be TxDOT.
Okay.
The developer may have to pay for it, but they'd have to work with TxDOT.
Sorry, you're talking about talking to Matt, the developer?
I'd like Brandon as exposure group. My whole take on this was, and this is why I was at, I'm brand new here, so I didn't get the information until late last week, and it's a whole lot of information. And my take was, I'd like to hear everything and table it to go back and think more about questions or proposals that we would want to get to the council. I just think it'd be irresponsible, in my opinion, for myself, to make a decision tonight when I only have a weekend and didn't get to hear everything that's being said, and then go back and chew on it, think about it, and come back with a plan.
Well, could the traffic impact study be done before that? And so that it could be brought to the table, we could discuss.
You can request that. I've asked the applicant, but they'll be able to do that within a month. They probably should be able to, but that's a question to applicant. I don't know what that. You need to answer that.
I think it's possible to do a traffic impact analysis in a month. But there's still some moving parts though, right? And so it's not going to be the perfect traffic impact analysis, particularly if we provide it to you and then you have other conditions. So you asked about the R5 for the townhomes, that would conceivably allow for commercial on the ground floor with residential above. Because of that zoning is a deck C1 and residential. If that changes the traffic study, if you say, no, we don't want that. If you say townhomes feels like it's not going to be enough green space, we want to see you lay it out with, exactly how many units and how much green space. Does that make sense? It's hard for us to give you the best traffic impact analysis without really understanding what the,
Well, wouldn't you get the analysis with what y'all are proposing? And then the report would come back and state that you stated like, okay, this really wouldn't work here, but it might work over here, and then the report would give suggestions, correct?
The report could also give suggestions, but we typically do that not from a concept, but from a more detailed.
So even the concept that we're looking at is one of the bigger developments that have been done around here. And so for us to even make an educated decision, I feel like having the statement thrown out, it's just a concept, that there's some moving parts here, makes it really hard for us to make an educated decision when it says, well, it might change a little.
But the traffic impact analysis would come back to the city for review and approval, and that could modify the plan at that time. We're not saying we're gonna serve you up with a traffic impact analysis and you have approved the concept and now you're stuck with that. The traffic impact analysis will be a living document and it could impact the concept at that time.
What, are there other examples of this sort of development that you can provide as an example? And that other cities might comment on your desire to work with the community and the people and their concerns? References, so to speak.
So, I mean, so this is a local owner.
Right, I understand that,
Yeah,
but
the city doesn't develop things all over.
no, I understand, but there is a development. You represent a company that, correct?
No, I'm not a developer. I'm an attorney that self a
Okay.
donation agreement and with,
Okay.
The ordinance and some of the other documents.
So where is the recommendation for this sort of development coming from as far as the plan?
So that's the site plan, that's phase 1 and phase 2. That came from a land development architecture group called Place Inc. And I think that they've got their information on the bottom of that. So they looked at the site, at the location, and the city's code and the comprehensive plan, and all of those goals that are wrapped up in all of that. It's just the recommendation.
I mean, for me, I understand Warren's comment for that current zoning, there could be 65 homes there. What I struggle with a little bit is all of a sudden this commercial mixed use, it's down here in the corner that brings potentially 5 times the amount of traffic, because you don't just have potentially the one person living upstairs, but you could have the 20 people that are going there each day.
Sure.
So that, for me, like, how many retail units is it? How many on this townhome, what really is it? Because then that tells you it's 15 townhomes and it's really only 5 retail stores. Is a lot different than if it's 15 retail stores and it's 24 mixed use townhomes. So for me, that's that little portion right there, I'm struggling with, like, what exactly does that mean?
I think all of that is tied to the idea of the municipal administration building being there, because then you've got an anchor that's not residential. So that's the city's desire, to have a full functioning municipal administration building in the park. Now you've got parking, you've got a community park that's of significant size, and then you would have the kind of commercial that would naturally affect that along Elm Street. But, again, because we're at the concept phase, we don't have that level of detail. If you want to put, I think Warren said this before, but, if it's your choice to put some parameters around it and say, we would not be comfortable with more than this. Somebody mentioned the 1,200 square foot home, so your choice is, we have the minimum standards. I think it needs to be 1,400 square feet, or, whatever the number is. And those are, well, under the UDC, we can put in 1,200 square foot homes, 65 of them today.
Right.
So
65 would be better than 500 residents.
well, it's not 500 homes, right? 65,
Yeah,
but
but
it's a lot.
I want to mention a couple of things. Again, this is not final plat. This is the concept of doing specialized zoning. It's not spot zoning, because you're actually doing a concept in which you're providing all these things. Now, I understand there's a lot of information. You're taking public testimony, there's a lot of information. looking at packets. If this is something you want to table, I'm gonna let you know, and I think this is where Tim may have to jump in. You can table it, council can, it'll still be on the council agenda because it's been noticed. And they could still approve it or deny it, whatever they want, but they'll probably, if you request table, they'll probably take it.
No.
Tim, you want to explain that?
Well, council would take into consideration that the fact that P and Z has tabled it. And act how they want to act.
Yeah.
In light of that decision. So I don't think hypothetically what council would or would not do is the issue, is what P and Z wants here. If they need to table it, they table it. It is what it is.
I mean, how do y'all feel about the
If you table it, though, you need to give them parameters on how they should come back to you, developers. You need to say, we want to see a TIA, or we want to see whatever the things that you want to see before you're ready to tackle.
I don't mind the frustration. It's really, how do you get there? The apartment complexes, the retail space, and then controlling the townhomes. I mean, I saw that they were listed as R5, didn't really make a lot of sense to me for them to be listed as R5. If they're gonna be townhomes, I get your point, but it doesn't make me like it more. The apartment complexes just didn't seem like the right fit to me, but, you know, I struggle with a lot of these people that have lived over there for a long time being forced to have this next home, but then it's also the benefit of having property rights, of having property that you do stuff with. So, you know, it's really frustrating trying to figure out the ins and outs of this to try to make whatever goes in here to be the best thing it can be for our community. But I really get tripped up on just getting there in a realistic thing.
Yeah.
Judy.
The traffic, no.
Before anything else will start.
I think Heinz wants to say something.
Okay, I've been listening a lot. I personally, my opinion on this PDD proposal is it's a very well thought out plan that provides the city with many advantages, the parkland, the space for a city hall with ample parking. It provides the city with a plethora of different options for people at different price points for people to live within Blanco. As part of my work on the Capital Improvement Asset Management Advisory Committee, we tried to estimate the current excess capacities in the freshwater plant and in the sewage treatment plant. The proposal would well fit within the current capacities of both of those plants. I agree with the recommendations of Warren that he wants to see a traffic impact analysis. However, on the second recommendation, I would go further. I would say that the developer, as part of getting that approval, should pay for the development or the repair of both Elm and Mesquite Street between 4th and Fulcher as part of the development costs, so that they should not just participate in building, the culvert there on Elm Street, but they should renovate the street Elm and Mesquite between 4th and Fulcher. And I would suggest that as part of one of the dedicatory instruments for the PDD, and I would suggest that to be in the CCRs, that there's a provision in there that no short-term rentals will be allowed within that development, or within that development district.
Thank you, Heinz.
So we had repaired all the streets around there, plus the culvert. Because of the construction.
Yes.
I mean, I agree with that. My struggle, like I said, is townhomes being R5, and then it's maybe duplexes, so then, what are we traffic studying if we don't know what that is? And why does that really need to be commercial in those townhomes? And do we have to approve the multifamily that's not even on the map yet? Does that have to all be in this same package? Because a lot of times, you know, you may approve a phase 1 or 2. Does the multifamily have to come into play in this? B?
So the request is for the whole project.
Okay.
I don't think they want to come back. However, the
Right,
city doesn't have to approve anything at once.
all right.
So.
I mean, in closing, I would just like to add, saying, yeah, as I said in the beginning, I think it's a well thought out plan, but the main issue that I see is access to the homes that are going to be built there, whether they're apartments, townhouses, or single family homes, is access. And Elm Street and Mesquite Street both are in such a condition that they do not necessarily invite people to travel on those streets, and that's why my recommendation would be to, instead of them participating in the reconstruction of the culvert, that they would be responsible for repairing Elm Street and Mesquite between 4th and Fulcher.
I just like to see how it ties in the 280.
Yeah.
This is
That's right now, I
the
just don't
main
see it.
issue.
I think, I agree with Hans. I think it's a really well thought out plan. I think it gives a lot of, whether we like it or not, teachers can't afford to live here. Wait staff can't afford to live here. People can't afford to live here and support businesses and we can't have businesses if people can't live here. It's just the way it is. We need to have places for affordable places, and the more, multifamily you put in, that provides that option. It's a nice park, it's a nice city hall. It's the only issue that I see is, and I really like the commercial. I think it brings a lot to the town. It's just how do you get there? And that's the.
Do you like commercial, or would you rather see that R5 and the townhomes actually residential?
I mean, that's just my opinion. That doesn't mean much, but I like the commercial in the way it's buffered. I think it provides its own little neighborhood. It provides a place for people to walk. It provides an actual community, and then you have instead of everybody just spreading out, it has a place for people to come together.
Well, I feel like if you're going to try to put in an apartment complex, I hate the idea of putting it in right next to a bunch of homes that have been there versus if you're going to put it in here, so that anybody that buys a house next to it already knows what's there. So at least people that have lived there for a long time aren't forced to have something right next to them per se.
So I think he's talking about, I'm gonna put the map back up.
Oh, I was afraid you were gonna ask.
You can see in your head, I think one of the ideas that we kind of bounced around, but I was gonna let applicants submit the way they wanted to submit it, is you could take that multifamily, which is actually, go ahead and go back. So, okay, so the multifamily, which isn't shown here, which is actually on the other side of the townhomes, okay? And then you go ahead and go to, I guess I don't have it on this one, but,
Point where it is.
yeah, go ahead and point to it. So multifamily is gonna be,
Comes down here and then this space here.
and that's 4 acres. So the other idea was, which, the developer probably gonna throw something at me, but what they could do is they could actually put the apartments or the townhomes and the retail, which is also 4 acres. And then you could put the townhomes and the commercial on Elm, basically where the multifamily is going to be, put the townhomes behind it. So you can actually do that. So where it says townhomes and retail, you could, and the reason for that, doing it that way, is because then the people that are buying into this community already know they're going to be near multifamily. Whereas multifamily, where they're going to put it, you have, and that happens all the time, but at least you wouldn't have 3 or 4 neighbors that would actually have multifamily. That's it.
Is there sort of an estimate of parking in that pink zone or parking spots?
There's not yet. We don't have a developed commercial plan for that. just the concept that Elm Street next to City Hall there, now you've got more of a business nature. And so the commercial would fit along that side. And then the townhomes are really designed to be a buffer between the residential and that commercial. And it could be a lot of different things, just well.
But the paint is private property, so it could be only parking for the retail. It's not necessarily public parking. You can walk around or walk to the townhomes or walk to City Hall.
It probably, I mean, it would probably be traditional commercial parking, right? You would the appropriate number of spaces for each uses. And the uses, right, restaurants vary from stores.
I know you don't have the commercial property drawn up or have a proposal or plan for it, but, you know, just going back to what the consultant for the Sweetie one overly talked about now having something built that won't go away. Is it something that, is it just gonna be a cruddy strip mall and that's gonna sit there for 30 years and be an eyesore to the people and you know, the people that live there? Or is this intended to be a development that adds value to the community and for the people that live in that development and the rest of the town?
So all developers will tell you it's gonna be perfect, and then you wake up 20 years from now and it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, you've got a partner that lives here, that's your neighbor, that has been here and contributed for a long time to the community, so they're not trying to destroy their neighborhood. And so what I think it would look like is traditional neighborhood commercials. So that's much smaller. It tends to be restaurant focused. It may have neighborhood services, studio, coffee, or things that work with the neighborhood that are not major intersections of tech retail. Somebody mentioned this wouldn't work for her small business because she needs a lot of traffic and a lot of visibility. Neighborhood commercial doesn't want a lot.
And what about the minimum square foot? That seemed to be an issue.
I'm fine with that because it gives options. My big hang up is I'm not real sure about the multifamily apartment complex still going in. And then they're asking for all of this. What should the city ask of them in order to have it? So I personally would like to table it, to do some more research, educate myself, ask more questions, have a meeting with Warren, and then come back with a proposal or a recommendation for council.
So tomorrow they can approve it if they want. If we
No,
don't
it's not
make-
going tomorrow. It's going on the 14th.
Yeah, if we don't make recommendations, they do just approve it on their own.
But I think our point is slowing down to make an educated recommendation.
If you table it, I'm sure that they'll honor it. I'm sure, I believe it will honor your request.
One question I do have, Warren, is there, and the economic incentives to the community as far as moving city halls, the tax base, is there a way to estimate what that benefit would be monetarily to the city?
So we can try. I will tell you what would end up happening. So you had City Hall at that location instead of on the square. City's intention, at least I would recommend to council, that the two spots that we currently have be leased to someone that would actually do some kind of retail that would actually bring in, not only rent money, but also bring in advertising. Sales. And so, cities don't on tax. And so in a sense, this is like a dead zone, two spots. It's still very close. So, we could probably estimate what a shop would do. Nothing against attorneys, but we probably wouldn't let an attorney be here. Someone else is not going to be retail. It's going to probably be some kind of retail shop or something like
And what's the expectation to build a city hall when we're still just working on the roads?
What would benefit to the city for that?
Like, is that a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, or we don't know, or?
So we'd actually be looking at, and again,
Yeah, no, it's estimates.
yeah, it's the CMAC committee has been talking about how we would actually fix, well, first of all, I'm gonna say something. We've had roads that have deteriorated for years and years and years. It's not a new situation.
Right.
We're looking at ways to fix that. But in order to actually do those, we also need to start getting some revenue. So it would happen all at the same time. Probably look at building City Hall in the next few years. But that would probably be a 3 to 4 year project. It would probably take a year to get financing and then another couple of years to build it. Probably be at the same time that they're finishing maybe phase 2 of this project or into phase 1. But we're also looking at beginning of certain types of public works projects that we've been looking at. But not a lot has been done the last few years, so that's why we're, yes, it has to be done again.
So because of like that he just said, it's gonna take, this thing is gonna take forever to do. I mean, it's gonna be long. Just things to think about, like, okay, we'll make a deal with you to build whatever, but the trucks can only go on this route. So they're not all over the place. So I just think there are a lot of details to really consider. A motion to table this.
So we have a second. Any discussion?
Well, I do agree with some of Heinz' comments about requirements, the traffic study, and the developer would repair Elm and Mesquite and the culvert, because that's all access into their development where they're gonna make money selling these things. Plus, I mean, the construction's gonna beat the roads up, so I do agree with what you just said, that if they were to build, there should sort of probably be the route in, the route out, so not all the roads are destroyed. I mean, I think that is a good point. And then the only thing for me is, mixed use and not really knowing how many units that would be, which I guess you'd have to know if you're gonna do a traffic study.
So the solution to what you're talking about, or partial solution, is instead of them building it now, or as they start moving through their phases, that they put aside X amount of dollars to do road construction. That would be approved by council. So probably put something like that together, but that would also avoid having heavy trucks in the streets just approved. So we have to come up with a number to be, I don't know this already.
I'm sorry, I don't need to ask any questions, but, so what is the plan for the phases in regards to completion, and what would be the total population there expectation? In other words, do you plan to finish the phases within a 3-year period, a 5-year period? And once that period is over, what would be the occupancy for that development, including that multifamily 72 units? I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of.
The PDD requires commencement within 2 years.
Okay.
And so, we have to comply with that. That's part of the code. In terms of the overall population, we're anticipating these are 2, 3, and maybe 4-bedroom homes. We've got 20 townhomes, or whatever the buffer units are anticipated to be. 71 unit apartments. I don't know that we don't have an apartment partner yet, so I don't know if these are 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, or 3 bedrooms. Some of that's a market study question. We could maybe come up with a range, but I don't know that we could give you a specific answer.
And do you have your financing in place, or your financing commitment at this time?
We don't even have the builder agreements yet. Right now, we've got to show that we can get a PDD before anybody will partner on these kinds of things, right? So yeah, we don't have builder partners yet. We don't have a multifamily partner yet. He's our commercial partner.
Do you have the financing partner yet?
No, that's all would be tied together.
So, I know you made a motion, you have a second. I think a lot of us have things that we either do or don't like about it. I've got my frustrations, but I am aware that you just got this on Thursday. Did most of you get this as well? You haven't seen it.
I mean, I feel like if it's tabled, we should meet again before the 14th, before it goes to city council with recommendations. Don't you?
I would like to send them a recommendation, but
Yeah.
we've got it first and second, so I mean, now it's, as soon as we're done with discussion, we'll vote on that and we'll make a decision after that, so.
I'm okay waiting for that. I'll
To the motion.
to table it. I'll meet.
We've got to get the city before we even.
Can I
Can we
say,
do that for us?
let me make a quick comment. No, this is a concept, we have done that. It allows the council and P and Z to do what you're doing here when we move along with it, you can make your changes as we go along. What I recommend, you'll tell me you're smarter than I am, but get with me and a couple of other folks and we sit down with a subcommittee of P and Z and just iron out all these little things that you want to change or that you want to see in it before we go into it. If I have to go in some of these changes with a partner, it might fall through because I'm not ready to put my truck out yet about that. But I'd like to see the committee study it, go into it, and give a recommendation, if nothing else, to the city. That's just my thought.
This takes a lot of work to put together. It may seem like you get a lot of questions, a lot more questions than answers. This takes a tremendous amount of work. So we're not gonna have anything, if you want to meet before March 14th, I'm not gonna have more answers. I'm being honest, so that's just not realistic. We would have to probably wait till the first. I'm sure no one wants to hear that here, but we have to wait till April. Yeah. If you want answers, we're gonna need another month. That's my thought.
All in favor of tabling it until April? Table till April.
I'm against tabling.
All right. You didn't clear out that one too.
Brandon, what was the decision on this motion?
All right, so we're gonna be moving to.
What was the decision on this motion?
Uptown Blanco Retreat House 514 3rd Street.
Hello?
Accepting, yeah, fine. Go ahead.
What was the decision on this motion?
It was tabled to April.
Okay,
You get to come to the April meeting, honey.
I will.
You will. Thank you.
Okay.
So I think the applicant had some questions and I'm gonna try to answer this. Most of these short-term rentals are basically shadow crews in the sense that they're allowed, they're allowed, while they're SCPs, they actually follow, they actually follow all the rules. Specifically, this was an SCP to allow the short-term rental in places normally not allowed. Commercial.
Thank you.
So the question for the applicant saying that this went on March 14th, and they'd be voting to allow this SUP as an STR in the commercial district. And that's what he wants. Staff's recommending approval of that. So Mr. Hawk, do you have the?
This one made a lot of sense.
Yeah, sure.
That's the case. That's what we're talking about, sir.
Okay, yeah, so it wasn't about whenever we did this application, what we wanted. We wanted to make sure we were planning for the right thing. And that was how this started
You are.
in June. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I had to wait till March to find, those details out, but, you know, in reading the short-term rental ordinance, there's no really, reference of anything commercial in here. If there is a reference, then it is residential, but it's not spelled out that it only applies to residential, so that's my question. If the city tells us that we're applying the correct application, then are applying for the correct permit, then that's great. And then when's that on that?
Does anybody want to make a motion?
Is it a motion? You still gotta do an SUP.
You also did it, didn't you?
Yeah, very.
I did.
We've got
So
everything.
it's an SUP. Okay.
Yeah. All in favor of approving? All right,
Thank you, guys.
that recommendation is going to city council. There you go. Thank you. Okay. So now we're on to the short-term rental for 1333 Sunset Ridge.
No spoke.
Question about that. Do they need a short-term rental permit because it's a guest house?
Yes.
And it just won't tie up anything up front of that street.
Most of the street times counted anyway. So they meet all the requirements.
I love to interpret.
All the other written sunset.
Yeah. All right, all in favor? All right.
Opposed?
That will go to city councils. Okay. So now we are on to the short-term rental for Aqua Blue at 413 9th Street.
There's no issue with that. The only thing they'll have to do is provide a site plan. I haven't seen that yet. Other than that, we can approve it. We'll see a site plan from that.
So it wasn't too close to that other one? I thought
It was
you
not.
mentioned that, no?
No, it was not.
Okay.
And I'm just curious, is that a duplex? Is that a duplex?
It's a duplex, and then there's a private property that I own next to it, that I live in.
The duplex would be the short term on both sides?
No, just the one side, on the outside of the.
Is the other one a long-term rental? There's a long-term rental and a short-term.
Currently, but,
The guitar place is a long term, right? Okay, and then there's the duplex, and then this was next to the duplex?
I think the duplex is a short.
Okay, both sides.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's both sides will be each short-term rentals.
Motion to approve. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? So now we're going to short-term rental at 202 Hector Street.
He met all the requirements, so they're going to speak on that.
Come on, I'm here. You have a question? No, I mean, unless anybody has any questions on this one.
Motion again. I'll second.
Alright, all in favor? Okay, that one is on city council, and then now we're on to special use permit, C1 zoning for 808 Main Street.
So in C1, Mr. Vitone was to put in a car lot that needs a special use permit. One person that was against that, that's it. So they meet all the requirements, at the time of permitting, though, you see site plan out to make sure that it meets all the requirements. So when they go out to get a site plan and permitting time, that will watch to make sure that all the metrics work.
So I looked at the UDC and I didn't find it met all the requirements. For vehicle sales, he needs 50-foot setback off all lot lines for any residential or developed property.
So say that again?
For vehicle sales, he needs a 50-foot setback off all property lines, which includes residential or developed property. And I didn't see the survey met that. Also, with the frontage, the vehicle's like 2 feet from the curb, and if you're C1 alone, with that being the business, I would say he has a minimum of at least 40-foot setback where those vehicles need to be pulled back next to the building. So I didn't see a site plan of where those vehicles are going to be located. Right now, they're both sitting right on the curb, basically right next to that other business that's doing some things that are not in compliance either with display. So did you get to see a site plan on it?
No, we haven't seen the same site plan yet. We want to table it for that, that's fine. My understanding though, on setback, it's not setback of parts, it's setback of actual buildings. But what I can do is want to table it, we'll review those issues and come back to you.
It's page 138 and 120 of the UDC, specifically vehicle sales and rentals have a 50-foot setback. And then it says it's not considered display. So once you meet that setback, then he has to meet all the parking lot rules.
Table it, we'll look at it.
I have a question. Is that Aqua Blue, is that an active business?
Yes, ma'am. Well, we build fences and we lay concrete and stuff.
So y'all use that blue building right now as an active business?
Until I hopefully get the special looking to relocate.
Okay. And then would you use that blue building as the car lot?
As the offices.
As the office for that, okay.
And then also just to mention, it's a special use, it's also a special sale. They will give you only classic cars, big fan of classic cars, and I will also add to the town. And I will not have more than 4 or 5 cars at a time, probably this. I'm not being overwhelming, no high traffic, no buyers everywhere.
So are you considering classic in the terms of the licensing? They have to be 25 years or older, because it didn't look like one of those was
Yes,
that much truck.
that one's 84.
So both of them are older than 25 years old?
Yes.
Makes you feel old.
I graduated.
I think we need to look at those requirements, because I actually think that they need to be next to the building, like parked right in front. And then I noticed, do you have a driveway permit there?
Yes.
Well, that was in there in the staff report that we need a driveway permit from that side. I don't, he may or may not, if he says he does, I'm sure he does, but and maybe a different kind of permit, may not be one for that specific use, so we'll have to look at that. But that was one of the requirements.
Is there gonna be any car repair, any type of cars non-running, batteries having done, things like that?
So we have a motion to table. Okay. Figure we can talk about those.
Okay.
If y'all are still wanting some more time to
Yeah.
talk about this, do we have a second? Okay, all in favor of tabling it? Okay. All right, we'll table that one as well. Approval of minutes for special meeting, public hearing of January 17th. I didn't have this on my original agenda, so do we have this minutes?
Well, I just have the one copy.
I spent all my time staring at episode. We can say that we still. No, I couldn't find them. That's why I'm saying my agenda didn't have that on there.
The second one,
Yes.
so we will table everything.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, motion.
I motion to table the approval of consent.
Okay, there's a second. All right, all in favor? All right. Can we get a motion? All right. Meeting adjourned at 8:55.
Yeah.